Good. What is Kate doing?
She is working at a Starbucks.
Oh,
Um, that's basically what she's done all her life is barista. In Australia, that was her main thing, working in cafes as a barista. And then most of the time that she's been here, she worked at a Starbucks within Disney World.
oh,
Um, and now she's working in a more local Starbucks, like, much closer, 10, 12 minutes from here.
oh, good.
Uh, a regular Starbucks, not a Disney property. So, but we have one car. We've always
Yeah.
had one car. We will continue to have one car, for economical reasons and because she's not real comfortable driving here because she learned how to drive on the other side of the road all her life.
Oh,
So
good.
Australia drives on the other side like England does and so forth. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
I bring her everywhere. I take Jesse everywhere. So that takes up a fair amount of my days as well.
sure, sure.
Yeah,
Well, we only have one car, and
yeah,
now only one driver. So,
yeah. It's actually for different reasons, but it's the same situation that we're in.
yep,
So
exactly, exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So, okay. So, um, what, since it's your time here, what would be most
Yeah.
helpful to you?
I mean, maybe we can, continue along the lines of what we were doing when I was there, and you giving me some more specifics now that you can probably see me better as well. Give me some specifics as far as things I need to work on more. I haven't had a lot of practice time since I last saw you between being there and coming home and getting things back into mode here. But
Yeah,
I've done spurts here and there and tried to do some of the stuff we talked about. Um, but you know, obviously, whenever you give me more and more feedback, it's helpful.
yeah.
So however you
So,
want to do that, whether we do 8 gates or form or what something else,
yeah. Well, with your limited space, it's probably easier to work on 8 gates.
It is, yeah. I mean, I can do the form. I may have to stop and shift and adjust and all, but 8 gates is certainly simpler and easier, and I can do that where you can see most of me.
Yeah. So, we things we talked about last week were
Mm,
the sphericalness of the movement, and
right.
also beginning to try to incorporate the curve,
C curve, right.
um, bend the bow and shoot the arrow.
Yeah, talking more about the C curve today would be helpful. And also, what came up last week, which threw a little bit of a monkey wrench into some of the 8 gates for me, was the where the hands are
Yeah,
rotating in each of the movements. Some are here, some are on the diagonal. I definitely need a bit more clarity on that because there was at least two, and I think maybe three of them that I was not doing in the right plane.
yeah.
So
Okay,
that would be helpful too if we reviewed that for each
sure,
posture.
sure. So, do you have any questions about the C curve?
Um, I'm still trying to get a feel for it as far as how to bend properly,
Yeah,
midway, not too low. That's still feels very awkward, and I don't know if I'm doing it properly. And also, just either reaffirm or correct me in thinking that, in is always bending and out is always kind of straightening in simple terms.
Yes, in simple terms.
Okay. Right.
um, but also being aware that like the Taoist spine stretch, you're endeavoring to open the posterior spine when you bend and the anterior spine when you straighten.
Right. Yep. So,
Uh,
so that's the goal of the movement,
well,
um,
the goal of
is
the movement
opening.
is the movement of the energy through the spine, but
Right, but that's a physical goal to help
yeah,
the energy flow more less unencumbered. Okay.
yeah, and one of the
Um,
things to really be aware of because it um, has a great deal to do with the movement are the um, anterior and posterior ligaments. Have I talked about that before? I don't.
not no, not a lot. If you have.
Okay. So, both behind and in front of the spine, there is a big ligament that runs the full length of the spine. And um, obviously, that has a great deal to do with how the spine moves. So you're trying uh, to use that. Um, you're not depending just on the little muscles that are attached to the spine, but that ligament, which is really primary in how the spine moves.
Okay.
Um, so, the, why don't you turn sideways to me and just try doing the C curve. Don't worry about 8 gates or uh, at the moment.
I'm probably doing it a little bigger than I should, but I'm just trying to let you see it.
I couldn't quite understand you, Jeff.
I'm probably doing the movement a bit bigger than I have been trying it, but I just want you to be able to see what I'm doing.
Yep. So, yeah, once more. Okay, so I can't see your neck, and but um, the one thing I would say is that I can see that your upper upper spine is bending forward. The lower spine looks like it's going back instead of forward. So you have to tuck. Yes, right. Just make sure you don't collapse. It's an extension in both directions.
I'm trying to get the crane's neck worked into it. Trying to get the crane's neck worked into this has not worked
Yeah.
very well so far for me either.
So remember that the first part of that is that it extends up and out and then forward, and not too much. You want to make sure you don't go into tension. Okay, it looks a little bit like you're still collapsing at the midriff, but um, really try to stay aware of that. Um, is that hurting your
What do you mean?
back?
No, it's not hurting at all. But you were right about me stressing my neck instead of relaxing it. That was correct.
Yeah. The neck doesn't have to move all that much because remember you're trying to match the upper spine with the lower spine, which doesn't have as much flexibility.
Right.
So you're doing more with the upper spine than you need to. Yep, better. Yep. So,
Uh, I can feel the energy moving much better than the last two that I tried.
oh, good.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling heat and feeling like I'm doing something better.
Good. Um, so we want to take that into eight gates.
Okay.
That's really the first step. But before we do that, let's talk about the direction of um, the circles.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so, okay, let's see. There's Moki.
Hello. Sorry I
What?
made you leave last week.
Yeah,
I'm sorry I made her leave last week.
yeah. Okay. So, and I'm just going to go to the circles. I'm not going to try to do all the
Yep.
things. So
Yep.
in Qian heaven, the circle is right along that sideline, and it's important not. Um, I think you want to make it big enough that you know what you're doing, but it doesn't have to be a big circle. As a matter of fact, that's probably uh, when I do that, I feel less energy movement than I do when no, uh, not on the computer.
David, while we're on Chan, how high are your hands going?
um,
I
well,
feel like I'm going
they
to
start at about you could say like mustache level. How's
all
that?
right. Okay.
And then you're just doing a circle within that. Okay.
Yep.
And then when you go down to Kun Earth, it's really just the same, except you're working at the lower Dantian level.
Okay.
And and this one, again, you're trying to keep the sense of the Laogong point right on that sideline.
Okay.
So, um, and it helps to really think about the Laogong point because that's the most open energetic point in the body. And you can actually begin to feel the energy moving through those side channels. Okay.
Yep.
The third one is the just the same, but a little more difficult because of the angle of the hands and arms. But
Yeah.
again, you're just going along those sidelines. you're not coming in and out or out and in. It's a circle that's going just like this. So, and this one is a little more difficult because of the position of the arms. Heart level, and really think about this being heart level. And again, it's right along the sidelines. So the first four are just along the side channels. Okay?
Right. Okay.
Then when you go to here, now you're the next four, the second four, which are considered to be, when we get into relating them to energetic movements in the form, they're combinations of the first four. But here we're really thinking about, again, as much as possible, a circle that's going like this. Just actually, the hands are slightly forward of the body. So I'll just turn sideways for a moment. So they are going to come in and up and out, and so they're just making a circle that's going this way. Okay? And you know, one of the things I would say that you have to remember all the time is that when we talk about circularity and circle, we're not meaning that they all have to be perfect circles. They may be ovals, but as long as they're rounded and don't have corners, that's fine. Okay? Here, and again, don't do this too wide.
Right.
Actually, you're not on the sidelines. Indeed, you're about the width of the body. But again, the circles are going in this direction. So, well, they can go either way, but they're simply going out and in, out. Okay?
Yeah.
Then Kun Earth, you're really trying to think about the arms going out on a 45-degree angle from the body. And the circle is on that 45-degree angle. So if I were to turn so that my front is here and 45 degrees is here, this movement is going right along that 45-degree angle, or approximately so. Don't don't drive yourself crazy about that, but
Right.
that's what your intent is, to go that direction. And
Can
then
you do that to the side? Can you do that to the side once more?
sure.
Sideways to me? So as you do that, David, are you feeling again the connection with the Lagong point to the side channels?
No,
You're not on that. Okay.
not necessarily.
All right.
Um, so there are two ways to think about these, about the second four.
Yep.
Um, really about all of them, but the second four, one of the ways is to think about um, the energy flowing uh, from the feet up to the top of the head, and also from the head down to the bottom of the feet. Or the other flow, of course, that you can focus on is energy coming from feet and head to the dantian and out to those two. Both of those, of course, are happening all the time, but you can focus on just one of them and at a time and be really clear about them. You have a question about that?
No, I'm thinking about one versus the other though, and what feels better for me at this point.
Yeah.
I think it feels, given that I'm trying to work on the C curve and all, I think it feels a bit more conducive to that if I think about it the second way, with the
Uh-huh.
energy coming through the head and the feet and meeting at the dantian and then going back out.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Eventually, you want both flows, of course, to be really comfortable.
Right, right.
Um, and then the last one, um, important that when you come in that transition, that you go to the point where you connect those wrist points. And when you do connect them, you will feel a response in your Lagong point.
Yes.
And then you're going back out to here. So, and here again, you're going to go on the side channels, but you're at that middle dantian position, which is just under the bottom of the sternum. And here the movement is very small, and it's just circles in this direction. And with all of them, the C curve is also happening, of course.
Right. So, David, on this last one, are you once again connecting the logong points to the side channels?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's helpful.
Good.
So, should I flow through the whole thing and
Yeah.
see where we're at?
Yeah.
Okay. Should I do it sideways to you or front to you?
You can do it front view. So I'm going to stop you there for a moment. So uh, two things I would say, and I meant the first one I meant to say to you last week or maybe several weeks before. Um,
Right.
when you think about bending and stretching, remember that you're talking about bending from the fingertips all the way to the spine. So that means
Right.
that the hands don't stay in one position all the time. Your tendency is to
Right.
do the movement with the hand, and that's not allowing yourself to have the hand encourage that movement of the energy through the wrist and the hand to the fingertips and out and back in.
Right. Uh-oh.
That was Moki. um,
Yeah, I hope that didn't break.
I have no idea what it was. Oh, do know what it was. It's all right. Um,
Okay.
and the other one
I,
is, well, go ahead.
good. No, you go ahead.
So the other is to realize that when you establish that level of where Chien is starting from, that's the middle of the circle. So it's going to go down a little and up a little, and down a
Oh,
little
okay.
and up a little, not down to chest height and up to head height.
I thought that was the top of the circle.
No,
Okay. Ah,
no.
right.
Each in each case, the position that you arrive at is pretty much the middle of
Ah,
the movement. That's not, I would say, in the second um, group, that um, the first three in the second group, that's not necessarily the case.
right.
Um,
Okay.
that's
Uh,
Mango. That's the female. Okay, so I'm gonna try
all
it
right.
again.
Yeah, and I am. What I was going to say is that I am aware of my tendency to just keep my fingers still,
Yeah.
rather than, and I am trying to focus on that, but I'm also at the same time trying not to think about my hands and when I'm doing the other movements, so I do forget about it a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot to think about. Good. So how did you feel about that?
Focusing on my fingers more and incorporating them more, I noticed a significant difference.
Good.
Um, um, I'm still very clearly needing to get the movement of the C curve consistent. I'm finding it very, I'm not anywhere close to a place yet where it's like I don't really have to think about the actual movement itself yet to make it
Yeah.
even and proper and leaning
Well, that's
forward. But I'm,
yeah,
getting
completely
that, making that a
understandable.
part of it is, I do feel a difference in making that a part of it, even doing it, haphazardly almost sometimes. It's still, I can feel a difference compared to not doing it.
Uh-huh.
So that's a nice step forward. The fingers, it's a good
Good.
step forward. How was I doing as far as the proper circles with the hands?
Looked pretty good from what I, could tell. Um,
Right.
a little hard to tell. Um,
Yeah. I know some of the angles you can't really see from doing it
yeah.
like that.
Um, one thing to to take a look at is as you're doing a transition from one to the other, to make
Yeah.
sure that you change from in to out in the middle of the movement, not
Oh,
three
right.
quarters of the way through it.
Yeah, you mentioned that last week too, and I actually forgot about thinking about that.
Well,
Yeah,
you can't think about everything at once.
yeah, no, but that's a good point also. Yeah.
um, but it seemed to me there was more roundness in your movement, uh,
Mm,
which was good. I could see
right,
the C curve beginning to be there.
right.
So definitely good things happening.
Okay.
So all of this, of course, is happening in the forum too.
Mm, right,
um, but it becomes much more complex um, because we don't have that regular rhythm of, of change in the form. Um,
right.
and so it becomes considerably more difficult to incorporate all of that. And it's it's a busy cat this morning. Uh,
Yeah,
in in working on that, it's really important to 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 just work on one intention at a time.
right. Yeah,
Uh, and at this point, you've got so many things you could work on that, and you have such limited time that it's hard to
right.
get a good focused practice. I know, but
Well, I think for now I'm going to leave the C curve practice to the eight gates,
yeah,
rather than trying to put that in the form. While on the form, I will focus on the bending and stretching and in and out
yep,
and twisting and all of those things more so because I definitely need a lot more work on that.
yeah.
Um, and until I get comfortable with the actual body movement of the C curve, just trying to put that into the form is not going to be helpful.
No, and be it's much more subtle in the form.
Mm,
A lot of that movement um, is virtually impossible to see in the form.
mm, okay, that's good enough.
Um, if you were trying to do it in the form like you're doing it in the eight gates,
Right.
it would change the form significantly.
Mm.
um,
When you do the form or any form for that matter, are you at a point where you are doing the C curve comfortably and to a point where it is definitely a benefit for you?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm certainly aware of it most of the time. Um,
Right.
so I probably talked about one of the things, as you are working on both of these parts,
Mm.
is to really try to begin to not only be aware of the circularity, but really try to find the sphericalness in the movements.
Right. Right.
Um, and I think I talked about the fact that in the form, rather than um, always having the same thing happening with both hands, either together or separately, there is that
Right.
constant change
Right.
in the form. the 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 spheres you're working with, which are actually several, are constantly changing and interweaving.
Hmm.
So it's a little more difficult to begin to be aware of that.
Right. It's better. I mean, you showed the last couple of classes, you showed examples of when it goes from working with one sphere to working with two separate spheres back to working with one sphere within
Yeah.
the form.
Yep.
And that is definitely takes more thought at my level, certainly takes more thought to think about when those changes happen and when I have two spheres going versus when I have one. So I have
Yeah.
not done a lot with that.
So my feeling is that you shouldn't probably um, try to focus on that too much at this
Yeah.
point because I think you're still working on trying to get the twisting and the bending and stretching and the lengthening to all.
Right. And also the more basic roundness into everything as well, rounding in the
Yeah.
corners and no sharpness and no stopping. I'm definitely still working on that as well. So,
Yep. Yep. Um, so why don't you slow a little bit anyway,
okay.
um, and we'll just do what you can do, and
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll see how this space goes. Like, as I said, I mean, I could do the whole thing. I just may have to stop and adjust a couple of times
yeah.
where I am,
Well, we might
which,
just go a little ways and
okay. All
pause.
right. I could do that as well.
Okay, let's stop there. Um, that's a reasonable place to
Right.
um, break, and it and it fits in your
Yeah.
room.
Exactly. I was going to say after that, I'm going to have to start changing things around and moving and
Yeah,
stuff
no,
into that.
but um, this is a really important section of uh, the long form, even, and certainly this one, because it contains a number of things that we repeat,
Hmm.
and so it seemed to me. I mean, basically, you have the movements um, functioning pretty well, and um, I think it's um, I want to be like Master Joe. I remember when we were working actually on the Yang long form. Um,
Hmm.
in class, every once in a while, he would suddenly, um, looking around the class while we're flowing or working on a posture, and he would say, "Relax."
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
um, and I think that's one of the things that will be very beneficial for you in all of these
Right.
movements is because I have a sense of control, but not necessarily release,
Mm.
letting go.
Right.
Um, and that's in certainly in each of these. That's really kind of very much what you're trying to find.
Right.
Um, and it's a very subtle thing because, um, as I've said many times, culturally we're kind of stuck in controlling what we're doing, making things
Yeah.
happen, um,
Right.
and so arriving at the point where um, when even from the beginning there is a letting go at this point, not a do it at this point.
Yeah. I see what
And
you mean.
then there has to be one of the things is that as you go into from Pung, which has a slight outward rotation, um, as you go into Ji, um, it has to come in, and out in that movement,
Right.
and there is a real letting go at this point, and then a release from the back, from the spine, from the scapula as you go into to on.
Right. Okay.
Um, that's kind of it's kind of difficult to work on that um, on Zoom, I think, but um,
Right. But I understand what you mean, and when you say it as you're doing it, I see what you mean. So
yeah, it's just really hard to let go, and which is one of my favorite phrases, um,
right.
to really let go and um, let the energy flow, because
Mm.
as much as we hold on to tension in there, to controlling and depending on the muscles, um, we really block the flow of the energy.
Right.
So it's difficult. I mean, here you as you flow from one posture to another, and even if you really slow it way down, that really helps in developing that. But it also
Right.
it's it's not easy. I, it's just trying to really let go of holding on,
Right.
which
How
doesn't.
ironic that it's difficult to just relax and let go.
Yeah,
The thing we want to do the most is just relax and not worry about things and let go. Yet that's hard to do.
that's very hard to do.
Yeah.
um, Particularly depending on what's going on in your life and what's going on around you. Um,
Right.
and that's one of the things that um, practicing Tai Chi can really help.
Hmm.
Um, that's
That for me, that is actually, one of the reasons that I returned to it once I was saw that you were doing Zoom. I was like, oh, I really need this back in my life because it
yeah,
had been several since I moved here. Between the time I moved here and the time you got on Zoom was about 7 years.
yeah,
And I tried when I first moved here to find Tai Chi classes and teachers, and that didn't work. So I tried some yoga for a while just as a substitute. Eventually let that go, but I missed the Tai Chi. And, in recent years, my life has gotten far more complex and stressful and exhausting. So when you started doing Zoom because of COVID and all, it was
yeah,
another sign to me that boy, this is my chance to get Tai Chi back into my life with the teacher I know and love and helps me, and so that's why I did. And so you're
yeah,
absolutely right. It's a needed break and a needed benefit from my otherwise tiring life right now.
yeah. And
Yep.
I know you really you you have a lot on your plate, to say the
Yeah,
least.
yeah, yeah.
um, and that's why um, it really is important to try to find even a few minutes to do a
Mm,
little bit. You know, it's we get into our minds that when we practice we have to do everything, but
mm,
actually, no. Um, I'm sure you've heard me say this before, quoting Master Joe. He used to say that five
right.
minutes of really focused and present practice was
Mm,
better than an hour of just fumbling through
right.
things.
Yeah.
Um,
And I've always agreed with that as well. Yes.
yeah, and and it's really interesting. Even 5 minutes can make a difference.
Oh, exceptionally true. Yes.
Yeah,
And that's, that is most of my practice is shorter spurts, 5, 10 minutes,
yeah,
doing the 8 gates, doing one flow of the form. That's most of my practice. And it's, as you say, it's so that I can have at least a smaller but focused period of time. And also because I need a mental and physical break from everything else that is happening. And so
yeah,
it's doubly beneficial that way.
yeah. And one of the things too is to recognize, that there are you don't always have to do a flow of the form.
Mm,
That
true.
uh, just taking a posture or two even and
Right.
going through them repeatedly,
Mm,
so that you're really clear about what you're
right.
endeavoring to do.
Yeah,
Um,
you're right. That's a good point. I don't do that. I tend to either do the 8 gates or the form thinking about usually one thing when I'm doing
Yep.
both, but trying to, you know, that type of focus and meditation does help in my
Yeah.
day as a whole. So,
With
yeah,
and that's and that's a kind of an issue for us. We get into that um, pattern of, oh, practice is a flow. Well, practice may not be a flow.
right, right,
um, Practice can be um, going through one posture 5 or 10 times.
right. Or maybe now practice is taking 5 minutes to do just the C curve up and down and up and down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, you're right. I don't tend to think of the smaller aspects as part of the practice. So
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yep.
and also
Okay.
it that gives you something, um, another way to practice in a short period of time,
Right.
rather than, um, because a flow can take a while, even the
Yep.
short form.
Yep. Well, that is true.
So,
Okay. All right. Well,
anything
good
else?
class. No, no, I think I always like this time, this private time together. It's very
A-
beneficial.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And this, I'm probably going to end up doing class here for a little while until I get a laptop and can move downstairs. But this is, at least you can see me here and we can do 90% of the stuff effectively
Yeah,
here.
it's much
So,
better here than on your
yeah.
phone.
Yeah. Yep. All
Okay.
right.
All right. Well, have a.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, and have a good week.
You too. We'll see you next week, David. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.